This was intense. Jonathan Sacredoti went to the House of Commons Foreign Committee, and these people hate Israel. And he basically taught them that Israel are the good guys and Hamas are the bad guys, and they're siding with the bad guys. Check out this incredible clip. Definitely worth watching to the end.
Some of the hostages, unfortunately, many dead, were released, but those were released under a ceasefire agreement.
Which is the cessation of the brutal war that forced Hamas into releasing them.
Okay, so...
right off the bat, these people are insane. He's like, well, Hamas released the hostages during the ceasefire, so let's just have more ceasefires. Well, brilliant. Why do you think they released the hostages in the first place? Because of intense military pressure from Israel, as Jonathan pointed out.
I go back to my earlier point, which is about what this journey looks like to something that is a safe and secure Israel, and actually to what extent the continuation of since the end of the ceasefire, the war in Gaza and the way that it's being perpetrated, is there any suggestion in your mind that that is bringing about, whether that be you escalate to the point that you have a ceasefire that is welcomed by the other side and is willing to get hostages, or is the expectation that you just continue to ratchet up in the hope that at some point, what I'm trying to understand, and we've talked about this a couple of times within even this session, which is not the next day, it's how you get to the next day. And that's the bit that I want to understand. What is your view in the appropriate route to go from where you are right now to talking about the next day?
I think the problem, if we're going to look at the validity of what they're doing now and try and assess whether or not it's a smart way to bring about the release of the remaining hostages, dead and alive, I would say you need to look at the alternative possibilities. So an instant ceasefire and withdrawal from the Gaza Strip of all Israeli forces, and according to what reports have said, the Palestinians have requested a commitment with some sort of international backing up of it, that Israel cannot go back to war, that this is a permanent end to war. I would effectively characterize that as a surrender, because what it would do is leave in power the terrorist organization Hamas, which is not only genocidally intended towards Israel, but also is brutal and punishing of Palestinians within the Gaza Strip. And I would say that it also doesn't really guarantee the release of all of the hostages, because Hamas doesn't act like an honest or rational or humanitarian player. And I would say that furthermore, what you then have to look at is Israel's security, the other issue I mentioned, other than the hostage release. Not only have you left in place that brutal force, that jihadi force in Gaza, backed by Iran, but you also are then faced with the question, what will happen next? What the Arab world will see, Israel's Arab enemies will see, including Hamas, but also including all the others, is that all they need to do is kidnap civilians.
Can I just make sure I understand your evidence? You're not saying that all of Israel's Arab neighbours are enemies, are you?
No, I said all of Israel's Arab enemies. There are indeed neighbours of Israel who have made peace accords, and there are members of Israel's neighbours who have signed up to the Abraham Accords. Absolutely not. I believe there is a very interesting and thriving part of the Middle East that is very keen to see a Jewish state succeeding in the land of Israel and cooperating with them. But if I may go back just to that point, which is
I just wanted to make sure that I understood what you were saying.
I think you did, yes.
Oh my God, this woman is literally Umbridge. She is literally Umbridge from Harry Potter. I noticed this in the last video that I made. But this woman, oh my God, I just wanted to understand what you were saying. I don't give a good impression of Umbridge at all, but she is literally Umbridge from Harry Potter. If you understand Harry Potter, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Now, I hope, anyway.
I do now.
Okay, good. I think that the thing I would say is that the moment they decide to seize more hostages, this all starts again. And what is bound to encourage jihadi Islamic terrorism to seize hostages is the kind of deal that Israel is being forced to make. And that's been seen throughout the history, from the Jibril deal, originally sort of the blueprint of Israel's first decision to swap Palestinian prisoners, terrorists in Israeli jails, for people who are seized and kept hostage by jihadi terrorist groups. This is a pattern that Israel is forced to repeat, but the more that we try and force it to maximize the price for releasing the hostages, the more in the future the security element of that sort of alternative arrangement to the one we're seeing now will be dreadful for Israel, dreadful for Israeli civilians who know that given half a chance, those same forces, and it's not just Hamas, it's the other terrorist forces in Gaza, it's even the civilians we watched in the videos, they streamed themselves, will burst into Israel, they will rape, they will steal, they will kidnap, they will murder, they will take hostages. So giving in to terrorist hostage taking is something that Israel also has to weigh very carefully when trying to get back those civilians.
Can I ask a question, therefore, another way? I'm going to ask Edward's questions in another way. So you've been asked about what's the future of Israel in 10 years, what's the objective, how's it going to work? You know, given the things that you want, that you understand the Israeli government, as it's currently formed, wants, and you've told us all the things that you don't want, but it's not really clear what it is and how we're going to get to where it is that you want to get. So can I ask it this way? How ideally do you see Gaza in 10 years' time?
Well, I'm not a soothsayer or fortune teller. It's very hard to know how.
Well, what would be a good outcome?
I would say that a good outcome would be the elimination in Gaza of the forces which are committed to genocidal acts on Israel and Jews, like Hamas. It's in their charter. And it's also in their actions, as we saw on October the 7th. And I would say that a Gaza which is meaningfully de-radicalized, a Gaza which sees education of its population towards peace and coexistence, a Gaza which is utterly demilitarized, a Gaza which doesn't just say that it has the ability, the intention not to murder and kill Jews and to eliminate Israel, but also has no ability to do so if they're lying or change their mind. A Gaza which allows Palestinians within it to thrive and live good lives should they choose to forego those principles of Islamic jihadism. That kind of Gaza could be one that could be achieved and could provide a brighter future, not just for Israelis, the neighbours who they attacked on October the 7th, but also for the people living within Gaza. Now, there's a lot of steps to getting there.
And would they be Israelis, or would they be within a Palestinian nation, or what would be their status?
Depends on an awful lot of steps towards getting there.
No, I understand that. I mean, I know what I think, but I mean, tell me what you think. I mean, so in 10 years' time, should Gaza be part of Israel, or should Gaza be part of a Palestinian state, or something else?
Well, there isn't currently a Palestinian state, so the question I suppose you're asking me is if I believe that we should establish one within the next 10 years?
I'm just wondering what the future is. I'm trying to get from you, not... this is terrible, we can't have this, we can't have that. I mean, I understand all of that.
I hope you agree with
But what we're
it.
trying to do, of course.
Good.
What we're looking for is what peace looks like.
What was that death stare? Of course. What? I was terrified. I thought she was staring at me. Oh my God, this woman is insufferable. Holy crap.
What a positive future looks like, and how we get there. And in order to be able to get there, we need to be able to understand what we agree on and what peace could look like and where we have common ground. And that's what I'm asking you.
Also, I believe that the common ground are the steps that need to be taken towards getting to whatever that 10-year vision is, which is demilitarization, de-radicalization, de-jihadism, educating towards living peacefully with your neighbours. I believe all of those things will get us to a solution within 10 years if the international community, including Great Britain, chooses to prioritise those things rather than choosing to perhaps sometimes engage in gestures which I think run the risk of making either side feel that they're not getting what they want in terms of an unachievable goal. If the goal can be peaceful coexistence and can be a rejection of violence, then I think that 10-year vision, yes, we can perhaps hope that it could be a state. We can perhaps hope that it could be some sort of emirate situation. I don't know what the solution is. As I said, I really have no ability to foresee it. If you'd asked me 2 years ago if I would have foreseen the Middle East as it is today, if you'd asked any analyst of the Middle East if they would have foreseen the fall of Assad in Syria, the virtual destruction of Hezbollah in Lebanon, the situation in Iran where Israel managed to strike and remove so much of the defense systems, the air defense systems, etc., etc., etc. Even October the 7th itself, I think you would be hard-pressed to find somebody that could have predicted all that, and that's just 2 years ago.
Of course, but the question is this. Real political leadership has to have some sort of vision as to where it is that it wants to go. Mm-hmm. And what we're scrabbling to try to find is where it is that the current leadership of Israel wants to go. What does it want to achieve? And that was the question that Ed's been asking. That's the questions I've been asking.
Well, I think the answer to that is that the state of Israel would like to live in a state of security with any neighbours of it that are willing to commit to that. And furthermore, as it's proven in all of its actions, including the Abraham Accords, but including throughout its history, where there is an Arab partner for peace or for normalising relations, it reaches out its hand to do so. Indeed, it's a state that's also given away large amounts of land in return for those sorts of agreements, even when they aren't particularly rosy. I'm talking, for example, about the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. So what I would say is that the state of Israel's vision is that. The question that you're asking me, I think, is whether or not the Palestinians have a shared vision, and I think this is key. If the Palestinian identity and political mainstream can commit to a similar sort of vision where they're going to coexist with Israel peacefully, and that there will be some form of compromise towards getting a goal they want, that can be achieved. But I think that as long as they pursue in mainstream Palestinian politics, whether it's Hamas or Fatah or any other part of mainstream Palestinian politics, as long as they continue to pursue the rewarding of acts of terrorism through so-called pay for slay, through a number of other means, through preaching in their mosques, including Fatah mosques, including in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, the longer that they pursue a continuation of terrorism and extremism and jihadism, I don't see how that's going to be possible. But if they present a viable option for Israel to coexist with, I think they will find a partner in Israel in order to reach that. I think that's a question really for Palestinian politicians.
A little disappointing. Gotta admit, he should have been more adamant. No Palestinian state. Sorry. Had one. You sort of acted like fools. Now, sorry. No food for you. No land for you.